Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
Heavy on the Mr. Conrad. I'm doing pretty good, actually. I had my 17th skin cancer treatment this morning as we're recording this. And so that means I've got Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday left this week. Then I think 2 more or 3 more next week, and I'm done. And then at that time, I hope to hear the news that you're cancer-free, JR. So I'll know that next week. So I got much on my mind other than healing from this shit. But I posted a picture the other day that got a little crazy ass play because my leg looks like fucking beef jerky. That radiation has burnt the hell out of, everything. And thank God they've improved the processes, Conrad, to where I have a custom made boot that when I lay flat on the table, my foot fits in this boot so that the radiation only hits the cancer area. It doesn't go everywhere else, but it's not an exact science here. So I got my leg it hurts and it stings and then it throbs. It's just, but they told me about all this. It's not like I woke up one day and said, "Oh, this is going to hurt, huh?" They told me what it was going to be like. And now it's bubbling up and it's got like little blisters. So they all got to pop. So I really got a lot to look forward to this weekend. So it'll be all right. Hey, look, people have gone through worse shit than me. And, I just got my eye on December 29th and getting back on Dynamite. It's my goal. It's always been my goal. I designed this plan with the doctor's advice and their counsel that we could pull this off. So, as we had it's the 29th, which is next Wednesday, is my, that morning's my last treatment. And there's where I have my consultation with the cancer specialist and hope they send me on my merry way. So
in theory, that day they'll declare you cancer free and that night we'll hear you on TNT.
I hope. Yeah, that's the idea, buddy. I'm going to walk out here. I might have a little bit of a limp, but by the time I go on the air, nobody's going to see that anyway. They're going to see me sitting there talking, and I look forward to that. I really do look forward to it.
Just tell the kids who ask about the limp, it's your gangster lean. They'll know what that means.
Yeah, I think, yeah, man, it's my gangster lean. You dig? You dig, baby? So, but I'm just working through it. It's really made me a better man, I think, because this is a challenge. This whole thing's really been a challenge physically and mentally. And to sit there at night sometimes and wonder, well, what if on the next Wednesday, I don't get declared cancer free and I still got to battle this son of a bitch. So what we do then, we battle, just keep fighting until it's all gone. And that's how I look at it. And I don't have any, well, what if? No, there ain't no what ifs. I'm going to beat it. I have to beat it. And I can tell you this, everybody that listens to this show, you don't know how important you are to us, not just from us earning a couple of bucks, but from the standpoint of the support.
Yeah.
And the good wishes and all those things. It's just terrific. And I see that a lot of our brethren in the wrestling media enjoy taking clips out of our conversations and stuff and use them for clickbait. Hey, if it's getting more people to listen to our show, I'm happy for that.
Of course.
I don't care. We don't care. So where are you going to be during the Alabama game?
I'm going to be right here at home hosting a New Year's Eve party, hopefully celebrating with a cocktail that Alabama has beat Cincinnati. But I want to get our predictions on that next week. Unbelievably, we'll be talking about another kind of bowl, Battle Bowl. It's the 30-year anniversary of Starrcade 91, which is a real stinker of a show. So it should be fun to hear.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Me and Jim yuck about that one. But today on Christmas Eve's Eve, what a topic we've got. Stone Cold Steve Austin, who just recently turned 57 as we're recording just a few days ago.
Yeah.
And we're going to break down his career from 95 to 96. And he starts 95 in WCW and of course makes a handful of appearances, most of the time working with Jim Duggan and in a losing effort, by the way. And then ultimately beats him in the first round of the United States title tournament and then loses to Randy Savage. And that is ultimately Austin's last appearance in WCW. How crazy is it to think that Steve's last TV appearance for WCW was against the Macho Man?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I didn't realize that, but I wasn't there either.
Right.
I'd left WCW at that time. It's just funny, Steve is a hard fit politically because he's so outspoken and he knows what he's talking about. And so when you have to understand the processes of addressing a superior. We all do, no matter what our jobs are. You got to know how to communicate with the head honcho and what not to say. As Vince McMahon used to say all the time, goddamn Sherry, you got to learn what not to say. So, but he was right. I sometimes was a little bit blustery, as you can confirm. But anyway, yeah, Steve was hard to connect with. And when you're hard to connect with, it makes it more difficult for that body, that senior body, that administrative body to create for you because they don't like you. They don't care if you get over or not. You're a healthy body at that time. And you're a really good worker. That's why you were putting you in the ring with Savage and some of these other cats. So he was way off the grid. He was way off the grid. He had no cachet there whatsoever at that time.
It's interesting too. I mean, everybody listening to this knows the story. He works in Japan. He hurts his bicep again, and ultimately he's going to wind up getting released. And a lot of people are going to chalk it up to a cost cutting measure. And don't forget, this is pre-Nitro. So Eric Bischoff and company are trying to load up the roster with guys like Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko. He's trying to, sort of load the wagon, if you will, for Nitro. But it's fun to think about, what if the bicep injury didn't happen? What if Steve Austin really got to stretch his wings on Nitro? Man, the whole wrestling business could have looked a whole lot different, right?
Well, it would have looked a lot different if he had been able to do what he wanted to do.
Right.
That sounds negative. I don't mean it to be negative whatsoever. He knew what he did well. He knew what he brought to the game, and he needed a platform to be able to express that. And considering with all those massive egos coming in and that payroll getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I don't know that Eric would have taken a chance on Steve. I don't know that he wouldn't, but there's no guarantee that he would. We got lucky. We got lucky in WWE when we got him.
Dave Meltzer had this to say. WCW did fire Steve Austin on September 15th. Austin, 30, was considered for years as perhaps the best young wrestler in the United States. His career languished this past year, almost to the point he wasn't even spoken of, much like his former tag team partner, Brian Pillman, who as a wrestler had made a lot of money by signing good contracts, but had great careers ruined by a WCW organization that has been both unwilling and unable to get any wrestlers over. Austin had been in the doghouse with WCW management over the past year over a reputation for not exactly keeping quiet with his discontent about how he was used. And for those involved, they saw it as a cost-cutting measure, seeing the $200,000 or so figure he was earning per year while not being involved in any significant program as perhaps wasted money. While on a tour in New Japan in June, Austin tore his tricep and has been out of action since, and is believed to be about 6 weeks being able to return from action. Of course, this paints WCW as a real class organization for firing a guy while he was injured when he suffered the injury on a tour the company sent him on. He would continue, Austin's main problem appeared to be in the cliquish nature of WCW. He didn't hang with the right crowd. When the Hogan camp got into power, they dismissed Austin as a highly paid wrestler who was a good worker with no charisma, and in their view of wrestling, work rate meant next to nothing. The Hogan clique basically consists of WWFers from the mid-'80s when wrestling was hot, and thus could dismiss any wrestler who came along later as being quote-unquote unable to draw money. He wasn't in the Flair clique either, so nobody spoke up for his work rate on the inside of the meetings. As a result, Austin was given little chance to show his stuff after his career-ending injury of his main opponent, Ricky Steamboat. Austin then suffered a knee injury, which kept him out for a few months before he was plugged into a new program. And then, of course, he went to Japan and suffered the tricep tear. So Politics and wrestling, man. They've been there since day one, probably not going anywhere anytime soon, right, Jim?
No, they're not going anywhere. We'll be talking about things of this nature for years to come because there's always intriguing behind the scenes stories. But Steve was not a good politician. He was very outspoken, and he was very clear-headed about what he wanted. And then so sometimes, because it's happened to me many times, where he would get impatient because you didn't see his vision. And that's just a matter of continuing to communicate. I was one of those guys that saw a lot in him. And I was also one of those guys that was going to keep listening, keep trying to understand him. And that's why we developed such a strong relationship that lasts to this day, because he trusts me. He trusted me then when he didn't trust anybody else. And to this very day, we're still, we're as close as you can be with him living in Nevada, me living in Florida,
I like that. Was he on your radar immediately? I mean,
yeah.
I guess we should add some context. In September of 95, you have not yet assumed the role of talent relations, but you're still in some meetings and whatnot. Are you bringing his name up, or what's the rap on him from other parties? You told us what Vince thought, that maybe he was too outspoken or what have you.
Well, I think the reputation that Steve had, he's too outspoken. I just positioned it like this to Vince. If we got a great talent here, which I truly believe that we have the potential of having a great talent in Steve. He's 30 years old, something like that.
Yeah, 30.
I said, hell, he's a huge diamond in the rough. To me, if I were in your position, Vince, I would do all I could to learn how to communicate with Steve and earn his trust. And so, because I think in the long run, it's going to pay off dividends. And we got lucky and it did. So it was just a matter of Steve fitting in socially. Like I said, hell, if he could dress by himself, you'd love that. But that's not to say he wasn't personable and fun to talk to. He only lets you in so far. And if you're a good listener, when your audience has turned your ass off. And so sometimes people could say that he had unplugged. He was done.
Let me ask you this about Austin. It's another one of those hypotheticals that I know you don't always enjoy, but just humor me for a minute. A lot of people talk about.
I will, Conrad. I love you, Conrad. It's holidays. look at those. My God, those chinks. They're wonderful. They look like little mistletoe.
Oh gosh.
Did I tell you I have a mistletoe belt buckle?
Do you really?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I bet that comes in handy, but I don't know that you should wear it on TV day.
Yeah, I don't wear it to Publix.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah,
So, a lot of people have debated over the years, especially when they talk about, the mid 80s, Hogan or McMahon, who really did it. You couldn't have done it without each other, blah, blah, blah. Now let's fast forward a decade later. If Austin is not fired by WCW and the NWO still becomes a thing and they get white hot, and they're just thumping WWE in every possible metric. And Austin never comes along because he's on the other channel. Maybe he's not Stone Cold. Maybe he's just languishing in the mid card, but you don't have a Stone Cold Steve Austin in your back pocket. Do you think Vince still could have won the thing in the end without Austin?
Well, it's hard to say, Conrad, but a lot of talents really evolved and it took giant steps. You could almost see it every week at getting better at what they do. We had a young Chris Jericho. We had Dwayne Johnson. He became pretty good. Triple H became a great heel. Shawn Michaels made his gallant return. We got a lot of good pieces. Steve wasn't the only piece in this puzzle, but he was the biggest piece that pulled the wagon that a lot of those guys jumped on and to ignite their careers. So it's a great question. You got to hope that one of those guys I mentioned is going to take the ball and run with it like Austin did. Austin just took the ball out of everybody's hands and said, "I'm the man." I'm the guy here. And if I'm the only one that can see it, I don't give a shit. Just watch what I do. I remember one of the most intense conversations we had one time was about him turning babyface. God damn, he hated that. And he cussed me, and he said, that's not going to happen. I'm not going for it. I said, oh, Jesus Christ. You're not going to go for it. Why are you here? Why are you here? I know why you're here. Let me answer that question. You're here to make money. Right or wrong? Yep. I said, well, I was looking through some old records the other day, and I gave him some numbers, some merchandise numbers of what Hogan earned back in the day. And so they've been years later. The information was obsolete, but it was accurate. And I said, so you don't want that T-shirt money. You don't want that no bump money. I said, I know you're smarter than that. I know you're smarter than that. That doesn't make any sense, Steve. I said, and here's the beautiful part about it. The way you work, you don't beg off much. You don't do typical heel shit. So I just felt like, I said, you're missing a boat here, man. And so then I remembered the checks are getting ready to come out. He was getting hot. The checks are coming out for that quarter. And I asked the check guy, I said, bring me a list of all the royalty checks. Because I want to congratulate guys. And I said, in certain cases, I might want to present them the check myself. And Austin got $1 million check for selling fucking T-shirts. Austin 316s, the original. And I said, ain't you glad we had that conversation that day? Because you just made an extra $1 million. That's a lot of money for a poor kid in Texas who was eating potatoes and trying to make a living in Memphis. So, but he was hard-headed. But he got it. And then he and Rock were the greatest. They understood how they got paid better than anybody else. And they would ask good questions, and they would, participate and so forth. And it motivated them. It was like I said, Austin had all those shirts that were designed early. He did them all. Those are all his deals. And I don't know that he would have had it any other way, Conrad. He might get a rough drawing. He might get one of your guys furnishing, here's 4 pieces of sample art.
Yeah.
And then move on from there. But goddamn, man, he touched everything he handled. He touched, like Vince does. Every phase of the business that Steve was involved in, he had some input, significant input, as a matter of fact. And that's what he's been working for all along. Just humor me, share these ideas. And that's what he did. But it's because he learned to trust a few people. He learned to trust his own judgment. And his gut instincts are pretty damn right. We've told this story before on the show. When he was going to turn heel at WrestleMania 17, that Vince, I said, I think it's crazy. To me, it's illogical.
Yeah.
And his response to me was, I think we owe it to him. He wants to do it so badly. He wants to be a heel so badly for whatever reason. He thinks he's going to have more fun being a heel. And then he became a comedic character. Nobody wanted to hate him. And that's what's a big issue. I've heard a lot of guys talk about that lately. Are there any true heels left in wrestling? I'm sure there are, but there are not many that don't work for the pop as opposed to work for the heat. And it's a big difference psychologically and how you approach the game. So, but he could try as hard as he wanted to. He ain't going to get no cheers of significance or boos of significance after that turn. It just was not in the cards.
Let's mention that after he leaves WCW, he shows up in ECW for a short but rather memorable run. Paul Heyman is going to let him be him. He'll mock Hulk Hogan. He'll take shots at Eric Bischoff, and then he'll just pour his heart out into the camera one night. And the result is even Kevin Nash mentions to Vince that Steve Austin is the hottest free agent out there. And of course, the context of the time is this is September October, November, December. This is 95, not 96. So Nash is still very much on the WWE side of the fence, but Austin clearly has allies here, even in the locker room.
Yeah, well, Steve was very well respected. He didn't bitch and moan about things that he couldn't control. There's not enough hot water in the dressing room. The dressing room's too small. I need a better place to park. All that shit. He's a man's man, still is, and that's why he's so well respected. He wasn't a bullshitter. If you sit down with Steve to have a talk and you want his advice on something, bet your ass you're going to get honest advice. You may not like what you hear, but honesty is going to be forthright.
I wanted to ask, whenever you're talking about bringing in a new talent like this to the WWF, does Vince sort of have in his mind's eye where a guy is? I ask because you wrote in Austin's book that he was brought in basically to be a mechanic and probably not achieve more than the Intercontinental title. Does Vince, in your opinion, look at a guy and say, that could be a top guy, or, hey, he could be a good mid-carder?
Yeah. I think all bookers do.
Yeah.
And what you hope you get, Conrad, in those hires is overachievers. We thought he was at best the Intercontinental title level when the Intercontinental title actually meant more perhaps than it does today. And that's not a jab. It's just a matter, I think there are too many titles all around the business. They start getting diluted. But he was a man's man, and guys liked him. He could talk sports. He could talk we could talk rock and roll. Food, drinking. He was a man's man, and he was a tough bastard. And so he earned the respect of everybody that he worked with, whether it be for $25 a night in Memphis to bigger money later on.
We also want to mention the change in the appearance. When we last saw him in WCW, he had these long flowing locks, and now he's got more of the crew cut look. And I think he said before that was inspired by Pulp Fiction, the Bruce Willis character. What'd you think of the crew cut look?
I didn't mind it, quite frankly. I'm not going to say it's better than the bald, because I thought his look, what it is now, what has he developed? I mean, come on, Conrad. He's done a lifestyle. Look at these, look at these guys on ESPN, for example. Watch how many shows. Watch any of them you want to watch, or the football shows, and how many on-air talents there have a shaved head and a goatee. When did that become popular? Oh, I can tell you. When this guy named Stone Cold Steve Austin started breaking the glass.
That's right.
So he ignited a style, a vibe, and that look then identified with success and toughness, two traits that men love. There's only probably one or two things in life we want more than success and love, and one of them might be, romantically oriented. But he was that was just him, man. He was just really, he would always been the captain of the team. And I don't know if he won it by popular vote, but because they might have been afraid of his power. But he had to change so many things in his life. He was going through so much turmoil, and and the drinking was an issue. And he'll tell you that today. For both of us, drinking was an issue. But that's how you escaped. And it's an excuse. It's not a reason, folks. It's an excuse, and it's a big escape. That's what we all had to do. You have to find your exit, and that room that the exit leads to, and that's what Steve found his room. And it to Vince. Vince had to change his thinking a lot, because we all knew that Vince over the years was partial to some talents. Ironically, they're the talents that drew the most money.
Yeah. Ta-da.
How about that? Who'd have thunk it? So But Vince changed a lot in how he managed talent, using Steve as a starting place. Conrad, he saw he had, in the same way today. Talents today have to be managed differently than they were managed when I was doing it, because they're smarter. They have more product knowledge. They're not in wrestling because of need, or it's their only job they could have in this world. They're in the business because it's what they've always wanted to do. We got a locker room full of those guys at AEW, and I miss that. I miss seeing them. I'll see them for the first time in over a month, hopefully next week. So, it's just a different way. You got to, in other words, Conrad, you got to communicate with. And now you've been in the mortgage business for a good while now. You developed a lot of success because the product is great and the service is wonderful. I think Raphael's got a mortgage with you.
He did. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's cool. And he's very happy with it. So, but Vince had to change, and that's to his credit. He don't get the credit he deserves. But Steve came out of nowhere and assumed eventually the spot. So I just, there's so much change going on in our personal lives, in the company's growth. You guys are making more money, Conrad, than they ever dreamed they'd make. They didn't know what to do with it. Some guys make good investments like real estate or something, or buying properties. And some of them bought more Rolexes and more $5,000 suits. So that's your call. It's their money. But a lot of the guys in that era, in the Attitude Era, had no clue that kind of money was available to them. I remember one year, it might have been a little bit after this, but the number was like 21 or 22 millionaires on the roster.
Wow.
That made over $1 million in that era, way back then. And you think some of those dudes are prepared for that? I mean, they didn't know what to do with it. Well, I always say, well, one thing I sure do is have me an accountant, a certified public accountant, not Uncle Charlie down the street who's got a computer. And the other thing, most importantly perhaps, pay your fucking quarterlies. Because Uncle Sam don't do no jobs. In the story.
So we know that the Observer is going to speculate that Ted DiBiase is going to get a renewed push as a manager. Meltzer would say the return of the $1 million belt will be going to a newcomer. And he has an interesting quote. When people used to say that Austin was going to be the next Flair, I always disagreed and thought he was more likely to be the next Ted DiBiase. Well, he exceeded both of those. And we know that ultimately he's going to become one of the best promos in the business. And maybe you had an inclination of that if you watched him in ECW, but when he comes in and he's paired with Ted DiBiase as the mouthpiece, clearly Vince thought he needed that, but is this more of a case of we got to find something for Ted and we're not sure what we can do with this marketable black boots, black trunks, the same narrative that Eric Bischoff had pushed? Plain black this, plain black that. Is this, hey man, we got to jazz him up a little bit. Is that the thinking?
I think it was the two, we were hoping that, two talented guys merged together would create magic. Ted DiBiase's got a great mind for the business. He's loaded with integrity and character. He had made the turn. Now he's coming back in the game with a chance to pick up some real nice paydays. So I think we all are pulling for both guys, and hopefully that their team would gel. Steve always respected the hell out of DiBiase. Would probably tell you today that Ted's one of his favorite talents of all time. And because Steve grew up watching Mid-South Wrestling out of the station there in South Texas. And so he was a Mid-South guy. Now you watch Houston wrestling. Everybody watched Houston wrestling down that part of the world. But he was and Mid-South was a big part of Houston wrestling for a good while. So he was a mark for DiBiase, like a lot of us were. And I was there learning my craft, same as everybody else in in that era at the guidance of Bill Watts. So Steve always was that when he and I were going to trip and we just shoot the shit, Conrad, a lot of that was just talking about Mid-South, even though we're both in WWE. So he was a big fan of that, but he was not having any fun. He got a little taste of the success and the accolades and the promo time and the bookings and the TV exposure, but he wasn't having any fun. And so that was a smart move by Vince. You got to move Teddy somewhere else and let Austin go on his own. And that's why we were having those conversations about him being a babyface that he cussed me out about.
As if being paired with DiBiase wasn't enough, we're also going to bring back the Brother Love show on Monday Night Raw, January 8th, 1996. No, this is not 1990. It's 1996. And this is the debut of Steve Austin as the ringmaster. Do you remember meeting with Austin? I mean, did he come into the office? Do you have a sit down with him before he comes out here and makes this debut on TV?
Well, yeah, we talked all the time, but probably about every day. But Vince handled that. Vince had a vision. He had confidence that the packaging of the ringmaster and DiBiase were going to be successful. Nobody could tell that story better than Vince. And Steve was smart enough to know too, no matter who all was in a meeting room, it didn't matter. And I say that respectfully today in WWE, as best I know. I'm not there. I got lots of friends that are, but Vince was the one that needed to sell that deal. I don't think Steve ever liked it, but he was willing to give it a try. Because Vince had to give that level line. Hey, I've been right more than I've been wrong on these big deals.
Yeah.
Give me a chance. What do you do? I'll give him a chance. And Steve did the smart thing to do, but he never got over the hump of being happy about the presentation. And then, of course, all we did was keep concealed one of the best talkers in the whole wrestling business. And many think Steve's one of the best promos they ever lived. And he wasn't talking. So things like that, you go back and look at when you have time to evaluate, you look at the whole thing, look at the big picture, you see that there's a better way. And Bill Watts told me this a long time ago. Vince has backed it up. There's more than one right way to get something right. There's more than one way to skin the cat, as the old saying goes, or whatever other cliche I can pull out of my ass. But that's kind of how I see that. Steve just, he knew what he wanted. He was still chasing that feeling that he fought so hard to earn and to gain. He's still on his journey, and the journey wasn't sweet and easy.
I want to mention, Austin cuts this promo on the Brother Love show, and he says his goals are entering the Royal Rumble, going on to WrestleMania. And 1 week later, we see his in-ring debut happen against Matt Hardy, who's here working as an enhancement talent. So there's a little trivia fact for you. Austin's first televised match here with the WWF is against Matt Hardy. Of course, Austin gets his hand raised. This is his debut. But it happens with a sleeper hold, the $1 Million Dream. Of course, we know eventually it's going to become the Stone Cold Stunner and, the hottest move in wrestling, and we're off to the races. But man, this just feels like we're just sliding him into a 10-year-old gimmick here. Does it not?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. I didn't look at it that way. That hold's been around forever. And when he first started using that $1 Million Dream, the variation of it was, I heard it called the Shinnomaki. I've heard it called, well, how much different is the $1 Million Dream from the Sergeant Slaughter's finish?
Cobra Clutch, yeah.
Cobra Clutch. So a lot of things are retreaded. It's all a matter of time and execution. And but I never looked at it the way you are. It's an interesting point. I'm not arguing with you.
Well, I just mean in terms of the $1 Million Man that's here. It feels like he's straight out of 88. And now we've got the $1 Million Championship title, again, straight out of 88. And now we've got a sleeper finish at a time where, well, Shawn Michaels is tuning up the band, and the Undertaker's giving people choke slams and tombstones, and Let's take a look at the babyface roster at the time, by the way, because Steve is a heel here. So he's potentially going to have opportunities to wrestle Jake the Snake Roberts, Ahmed Johnson, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, The Undertaker. I mean, that's a pretty strong outfit of opponents there. Do you remember anybody in particular saying, man, I want to work with that guy?
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to work with Steve because they knew they would be in an environment that would be stiff but safe, that a good story would be told, and that we'd have to hustle. It's going to be Austin's got a pace. And so I don't know anybody that didn't want to work with Steve.
The most interesting start for a lot of these guys is my favorite part of a story. You talk about when Jericho gets started and it feels like he's got a lot of stops and starts, and is he going to make it? And it kind of feels that way with Austin, being paired with DiBiase, the $1 Million champion on the Brother Love show. And then he finally gets to the Royal Rumble, his first big pay-per-view. And as the legend goes, he was scheduled to be one of the final four, which is obviously a vote of confidence from the company. But before the then Fatu, who Steve says he has a ton of baby oil on him, clothesline Steve. And what do you know? Steve accidentally tumbles over the top rope. He can't hang on. So he is unfortunately eliminated early. And that means the whole finish of the match has to change.
Right.
And this is your first big show. Hey man, we're going to give you the big push, and quote unquote, he screwed it up. Now, of course, snake bit.
Fate.
The rattlesnake was snake bit here.
Yeah, he was. And he was not to be, soothed. He thought he'd blown the whole thing, and he had to process that information. And so my deal to him was always, okay, here's the thing. Those back here know that there was a screw up. The audience doesn't know that. And then secondly, you've got to be kidding me to think that this is it.
Yeah.
You're getting over. And that's where we had that babyface talk, which again, I got cursed out. I got cursed more by him than I did my own man. And that was every day. So, but anyway, yeah, he had to overcome. That was a huge turning point, and his maturity level, you could tell, had advanced and had matured in a good way, because he came out of it and he kept fighting because he knew he was on to something. And he also knew that he had apparently gained Vince's trust, and that's big money.
So Austin is not on the In Your House show after the Royal Rumble, which of course happened in February, that In Your House show, but he is on Raw the next night. And on that very seemingly random episode of Raw, Vince McMahon would refer to Steve Austin as having a stone cold personality, which I guess is the first time we heard that phrase associated with Austin. And thankfully on March 2nd, they're going to go ahead and drop the ringmaster moniker, and we never hear from it again, which is probably a blessing.
Yep,
but as the story goes, there were other names considered. Silly shit like Chili McFreeze. I can't imagine this Steve Austin character has a Chili McFreeze personality. My God.
That comes out of a marketing meeting, or it comes out of a room filled with people that most of them don't have product knowledge, and they're not fans, and they're tongue-in-cheeking it. That shows you their lack of respect in general for the business. And Chili McFreeze, are you shitting me? That's what you guys got today. See, that's how I managed, and I wasn't so popular in some of those meetings, because I'd walk in and say, "We're having a meeting so you can present this shit." You got to be kidding me, fellas, ladies, gentlemen, whatever. So, but it was horrible. It was horrible. I can just feel it's like having a number one draft pick. You draft Trevor Lawrence for the Jags, and then you move him to split end. What? What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
So it's like thinking Alabama's not going to win the national title. I told you several weeks ago, they're still my favorite to win the title.
That's looking like they are the favorite right now.
Yeah, the quarterback got hot at the right time. It's like March Madness. The secret to betting on these games is which team had the momentum before they stopped and started practicing for the bowl, and who's got the best quarterback. And you guys got the best quarterback.
Checking all the boxes. And so was Steve here in early March. He's on a Texas loop working another fellow Texan, Shawn Michaels. Now remember, this is early March, so this is before the boyhood dream has come true. But we know just a month later, Shawn Michaels is going to be the world champ. And that's got to be a good sign, because if he likes working with you, maybe you've got some upward mobility, especially since Diesel and Razor have both given notice. All the dominoes are falling in place. But again, you got to wonder, if Diesel and Razor hadn't left, what if Scott Hall and Kevin Nash stuck around, the NWO was not born? Would Austin have had the same opportunity to bubble up to the surface?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why, Conrad, that DTA is not just a marketing slogan. Don't trust anybody. As much as I know he's very close to Kevin Nash, as I am. I got a nice text the other day from Kevin. He said, I can't believe we aren't seeing each other, because you live in Jax Beach and I live in Daytona Beach. It's probably an hour and change drive, but that's the wrestling business for you. And someday we'll all regret it, because we'll say, damn, I didn't go see that guy. But in any event, Austin was not going to let anybody, a spouse, a family member, anybody, screw up this fucking trip. So whether it be Hall or Nash or the almighty NWO or wherever the fuck, he could give a shit less. It's like, it's a team game, Conrad, but it's got strong individual personality traits. So Hall and Nash would have meant nothing to Steve's push or him getting over. The audience was getting Steve Austin over. But I'll agree with you. Shawn had Vince's ear.
Yeah.
And so consequently, that's a good thing for Austin. Shawn knew that he'd get in a match with Steve and not get beat all to hell. It wasn't like working with Vader, for example. And all due respect to Leon, God bless him. So no, I getting to work with Shawn didn't realize then he could touch it, feel it, everything. He knew exactly what he was getting into, and he liked what he felt with Austin.
It's a bit of an odd scenario. Steve Austin's going to be inserted into the WWF Tag Team Title Tournament. He'll be teaming with Savio Vega once Razor is suspended. Ultimately, they lose to the Body Donnas after Austin turns on Savio, and now he has a WrestleMania opponent. And these are two really talented workers. I know Savio Vega might not be a huge fan favorite these days, but you go back and you watch their matches together. Man, they just tore it down. And Austin cannot give enough credit to Savio Vega in hindsight with helping him really elevate his game here in the World Wrestling Federation and show what he could do. He needed the right dance partner, and Savio was that guy, right?
No doubt. That's why I booked Savio and Steve a lot in those days of house shows. They both enjoyed working with each other. They looked at it as a night off, to the extent that, but every night they worked, they wanted the match to be a little different. The one thing that kills me is seeing guys have the same matches on TV they had in a house show run. That's lazy ass. It's pitiful. Tell me why you did that. Because you didn't want to invest more of your body and your soul and your feelings into your character, into the match. So you're basically memorizing your match off Broadway. Then we get to TV or pay-per-view. You've already had it. And I'm guilty of booking that. I did the same thing. And sometimes you did it because you wanted to make sure it helped calm the talent down a little bit. Touch each other, do your thing, have a match. But we're not going to have the same exact match on the pay-per-view. Change it up a little bit. So, but that's where that came from. You know, we did that a lot. But we had a lot of transitional talent. And we need to know how they're going to fare in that environment, in that ring, at this event with that talent. So, but Steve and Savio got along really well, and they beat the shit out of each other. I'll say this, that they were as physical as hell, and that got the other guy's attention a little bit. It wasn't a, slapping your arms and slapping your face and slapping your hip and making noise. I've never heard a leather foot hit somebody's face and it popped. It's impossible, Conrad. It don't happen. Now you can go out there in your backyard and try it all you want. I promise you can have the Casio kid kick you in the face all you want. And it ain't going to make no noise. It's going to make a little thud or something like that. But it's not going to pop like the guy slapping their side or whatever.
So Austin finally has his big WrestleMania moment. And you got to remember, this is a guy who just a handful of months prior to this was fired by FedEx, from, WCW. And a guy
he was fired via FedEx, but he didn't work for FedEx.
Correct. And, you know, this is a guy with real, honestly, humble beginnings, you know, starts in the dying world class promotion, winds up living on raw potatoes in Memphis, ultimately gets fired from WCW. And now he's getting a win at WrestleMania. This is a big deal. It took 10 minutes and 8 seconds before Austin got the win. Meltzer would say both guys worked hard, but there was no heat and the finish died live. The work itself was good in spots and slightly off in other spots. The physicality was there, but the audience was not yet in love with either one of these characters. So as a result, Meltzer gave it 2 stars, but still getting a win at WrestleMania, it's not a bad day.
No, it's a good day. It's his first stop in the journey. And we're not keeping track of win-loss records. We're keeping track of pay stubs. And I guarantee he got probably the biggest payday he ever got in his life was at that WrestleMania. Even though he was in a prelim level match. Yeah. I'm sure he still made more money that night
than any other one match ever, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Austin,
you know, I got it back in Oklahoma. I've got, when I cleaned my office out in Stanford, I'm a rat. I'm a collector hoarder. I was going through some shit there the other day, last time I was home, and I found all the pay sheets.
Oh,
for like, I don't know, many years, that I didn't know him had. They've been still in the same stack, same rubber band around them, same manila envelope or whatever folder. And it's pretty cool to go back and look at some of those things and see what I paid guys. And,
talk about a collector's item. That's cool to have. Good for you.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I think my collecting days are
probably in the rear view. Yeah.
Drawing near. Yeah.
I want to mention, even though Steve gets the win, and don't get me wrong, that's worth celebrating. And as you said, probably the biggest single payday he ever got for a single match. It still feels like Vince has his training wheels on Austin a little bit. We've dropped the ringmaster, but we've still got DiBiase. We're still using the $1 Million Dream. But it won't be long before those training wheels are off. And speaking of off, there's a big trade essentially. Now it's not like it's a, football league or baseball league and these teams are really trading, but just humor me for a minute. 1, 2, 3 Kid, Razor, Diesel, they're going to WCW. And then comes Steve Austin, Mark Mero, and Mick Foley. And I don't know about you, seems like a pretty damn good trade on both sides. And I might even give the advantage to the WWF on that deal.
And you could, and make a good argument for it. All those guys are very talented. They went where they needed to go at the time.
Yes, they did.
And that's all good. So Mero was a Sable hire. You know that. Mark is as wonderful a person that's walked this earth as with a wrestling background or image as anybody I know. Great guy, great motivational speaker, lives a clean life. He's a good man. And if you ever get a chance to hear him talk at one of his things he does, probably be worth your time. You'll get something out of it.
Oh, for sure.
And, but then I thought Foley was a pretty good hire.
Yeah. Worked out, huh?
I thought he did pretty well. And of course then Steve goes crazy. But so, yeah, I think you can say it was a win-win for both sides, but based on the lay of the land at that time and the evolution of the said talents on both groups, I would give. It's hard to knock that WCW hiring. NWO. That would save their. I mean, I don't say it saved their ass, but it might have saved their ass.
It was huge, but again, it wasn't bigger than Austin 316. But we're not there yet. And outside of Mania 12, we would see Austin lose to the Caribbean Kid on Superstars. This is going to be Austin's first television loss, and you might be wondering, who the hell's the Caribbean Kid? I don't remember a guy under a mask called that. It's Savio Vega. Nice little way to keep the feud going. But of course, as was tradition back then, right after WrestleMania, we're going to do the big European tour. And man, this is where the rubber meets the road. Check this out. The first night in Germany, he's going to put over Bret Hart. It's his first time these guys have ever worked. And then he's going to go 27 minutes with Shawn Michaels in Germany in the main event, by the way, because Shawn's now the champ. Ahmed Johnson is going to go ahead and beat him in Bonn, and then he'll lose to Bret again in Frankfurt. But still, those are the top three baby faces in the whole deal. And he's getting 27 minutes with Shawn, multiple matches with Bret, and he's wrestling Ahmed Johnson. Clearly, it's about to be his time to shine.
Absolutely. Somebody's knocking on the door.
Yeah.
And, Steve never had an issue about, people were going to say, well, what about that Brock Lesnar thing in Atlanta? Well, he didn't have a problem putting over Brock Lesnar or you, Conrad, or me, Billy and Benny McGuire podcasting. I can say that because it's a pot called the Kettle Black. But I have lost some weight during this cancer thing.
Oh, good for you.
I have one ab.
That's a big one.
No six pack, but I got that quart size.
There you go.
But Steve never had an issue putting people over if it was the right thing for business. And so, and he had such good judgment about how to book his character and how to win and how to lose, that, it's never become a real big issue. So the brilliance of this deal was a 27-minute with Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
I'm sure when it was booked, we didn't plan on them going 27 minutes. Probably 20, 15. Depends on how hungover they were, how tired they might be, how sore, whatever. But I'm sure Shawn called that in the ring and extended the match because he was having fun. Isn't it amazing? Some kids never grow up. It's still about having some fucking fun. In today's world, especially in wrestling, because you think about it, as somebody smart enough to step back and figure out things, like budgets and TV contracts and all these things, then, they got a lot on their weight on their shoulders. Because I look at the business right now as probably one of the more exciting times. I don't think I've ever been in an overall pro wrestling cocoon that's as unpredictable and fun for me as business is now. Because it's fun to see these indies have houses. It's fun to see wrestling fans supporting all kinds of wrestling. And I think that's just way past due. I'm glad we're there. But Steve would come back from that tour very happy. And it wasn't because he got a good payday. He did get a good payday. We made money on that tour. A lot of money.
He's happy because he got to work against the world champion on a tour, which is something that wasn't even fathomable in WCW.
Yeah. And he also knew that to get that match with Shawn, Steve needed, the match had to be quasi blessed with Shawn. In other words, we did not have to get Shawn's permission to book him with Steve. That never happened. But you always want to measure and test the water, stick your toe in.
Yeah.
On some of these things. And so, but 27 minutes, that's all Shawn. And that was a big statement to the old man. They went 27 minutes because I almost remember that goddamn agent report. I think Jack Lansing was on there. God bless him. He passed away here lately. Best agent we ever had. What a guy. Blackjack. He's a big asset to me, I can tell you. I talked to Jack Lanza. My wife, Jan, said one time, I think he talked to Jack Lanza when he talked to me. I said, well, honey, we got a little thing going. I like the mustache. So, but Lanza was effusive. But Lanza was a mark for Austin. Lanza could see. It only happens maybe once or twice in your career. You run across somebody that's gold. Jack had it with Hogan in the AWA in early days of WWE, WWF. But some of us like Patterson. Patterson was always fighting for Rock. That was his guy. And God Almighty, there's nothing wrong with that. We knew he was can't miss. So what was the problem? Was the problem going to be you got two top guys? Oh, how are you going to juggle that? Well, we'll figure it out. Let's travel that road and get to that next bridge and then cross it. It's not a bad problem to have. Consider they headlined in 3 single matches, 3 WrestleManias. And it sold every time. There was money made in those WrestleManias that Rock in 15, 17, and 19. Because I was blessed enough to be able to call them all. And a lucky man I was. So I remember that time. Austin became a star in that tour as far as office perception.
Yeah. He would get a chance to do it again. He's not on the next pay-per-view, which is In Your House, Good Friends, Better Enemies. But remember, In Your House in that era is just a 2-hour show. But the next night on Raw, he would defeat Scott Taylor, who's going to go on to become Scotty 2 Hotty. And we would see Savio Vega challenge Austin to a Caribbean strap match. Austin begs off, but that means it's definitely coming. And before we get to the next In Your House, Beware of Dog, which is a pretty crazy story in and of itself. The WWF runs a bunch of sold shows in Kuwait. And who does Austin work? Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels.
Well, I learned a little bit on that first tour. You're going to go to Kuwait. You're going to be shut in. Remember those TV preachers back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
I want to pray for the sick and shut-ins. Well, the talents are like sick and shut-ins in some of those countries as far as finding booze and recreation. And, but I knew those guys were selling the tickets. And I also knew that they all had great respect for each other's work. So those bookings were easy. Even I could do it.
So I want to mention the next, In Your House is the pretty famous Beware of Dog one where we lose power, but that's not what's important. The stipulation here is that if Savio loses, he'll become an errand boy for Steve and DiBiase. And of course we know that they had to reshoot the doggone thing. So when it winds up happening the second time in between the first In Your House and sort of the do-over, if you will, DiBiase puts his notice in. And as you said, I'm sure Austin absolutely adores DiBiase as a performer and a worker, but man, if he's really going to get to spread his wings, the last training wheel that needs to leave is DiBiase. And it happens when Ted signs with WCW, right?
Right. Yeah. I think some people might get the perception that Steve, kicks Teddy out of a job. Steve didn't make any moves on that. Vince knew he wasn't happy with it. But it wasn't an ongoing every day, every minute bitch session. So Teddy leaving he had a chance to make, WCW was getting hot, and they had big plans, and he fit right into that mold of those '80s guys. Because he was a huge star in that era, and you couldn't get a better guy in the locker room. So. Yeah, that was how that worked out. It was just, but it gave him the spreading the wings is a good analogy. He'd been waiting for this moment to be, okay, now you can be your guy. All those years we've talked about what you wanted to do and how you wanted to do it, and how you wanted to be perceived, booked, marketed. Now it's here. So let's go do it. And he was up for the challenge, obviously.
Just so you know, the timeline, April 15th is when Brian Pillman would have his Humvee accident. We know he's a former tag team partner and really good friend of Steve Austin's. We also know he's going to wind up landing here in the WWF. We'll get to that here in a little bit, but first we should mention the infamous curtain call show at Madison Square Garden. Meltzer had this to say: at MSG, Steve Austin pinned Jake Roberts in about 3 minutes. After the match, Austin told Roberts he was washed up and challenged him to another match. So Austin pinned him again. I guess they're going to use Roberts' name value to give the younger guy some credibility, which you have to give Roberts credit for as a team player, since his days as a headliner are over. How professional was Jake here? Was he looking to transition to a behind the scenes gig anyway at this point?
I think you're looking to transition to any gig.
Yeah.
You know, it's either that or be relegated to working some higher level indies.
Yeah.
And, you know, hoping you get paid. You're not working with somebody that's crazy and getting involved in some structure, because Jake needed some structure. But yeah, I'm losing my thought. The Jake thing was that job or any job, because you saw the handwriting on the wall, Conrad. Jake did. The big money days on top are over.
Yeah. So
what do you do to replace some of the income? You can't replace it all, because the next job you get won't have the same paying position that you did as a main event guy and a WrestleMania guy and all those good things.
I just want to add context to this. A year prior to this, he's doing tours on house shows, losing to Jim Duggan, sometimes in seconds. A year later, he's doing European tours, working with the world champion and Bret Hart. And then he's beating Jake the Snake Roberts twice in the same night in Madison Square Garden. Things are looking up for Mr. Austin.
Yeah. He's, again, it's all a matter of acquiring the trust from the head man.
The whole situation with the curtain call, of course, changed the WWF and Steve Austin's career forever. It's not just a story about Hunter Hearst Helmsley getting pushed down the cards, and as the old Vince saying goes, learning to eat shit and like the taste of it. It is the story of, almost like in professional athletics, like football, when the starting quarterback goes down, that's bad for the team, sure, but it represents a great opportunity for someone else to step up. And that person is going to be Steve Austin. And without it, you know, I mean, as the legend goes, the king of the ring was supposed to be Hunter Hearst Helmsley. If Austin doesn't get that moment at the mic and that final match with Jake and drop that Austin 316, this could all look a whole lot different, couldn't it?
Well, it would have looked different. It not could have. It would have. It would have looked different. Everything ended up happening for a reason. And it was so unpredictable, because nobody would have thought, if you follow Austin's journey and him finally breaking down the forbidden door, as the beloved Tony Khan would say, he became, he saw his chance, and he saw that he wasn't going to miss it. He wasn't going to drop the ball. And that's why there were so many issues where he'd need to be, I would need to speak with him, because I would listen good, and he trusted me, and we got through all that stuff, and it wasn't easy. You're not dealing with a regular guy here, Conrad. That's the thing about extraordinary athletes and extraordinary performers. And Austin had all that rolled into one. He had a gift wrapped. He'd already done the gift wrapping here at the holidays. Happy holidays, everybody. Merry Christmas. But golly, man, he battled. He battled. And I know a little something about battling right now. You just got to keep doing it. I'm not going to walk in that living room and elevate my foot and ankle on my couch, and in a little while, all the pain subside. It ain't going to work that way, JR. Your tougher days are ahead of you. Man up, be your father's son, or be a puss and lay down and complain. I might complain, but I ain't going to lay down. So, and Steve never laid down. He fought and fought until his agenda was addressed.
So, as you know, the strap match was outstanding. You can't go without telling this story without putting over this match in particular, in my opinion. It's Beware of Dog. They get a ton of time. Remember, it's only a 2-hour show, and they get over 21 minutes here. And ultimately, Austin's on the losing end. Vega gets the win, but it's a 4-star match out of Savio Vega and Steve Austin, the first match on the show. This is another feather in the cap for Steve Austin. No matter where you put me, no matter the circumstances, no matter the gimmicks, I'm going to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's his game. That's how he looked at it. And again, Austin doing the honors, he didn't give a shit.
No problem.
I want to have a great match. And based on Meltzer's evaluation, that's what we're using. 4 stars is a great match.
So let me ask, King of the Ring, in hindsight, if you had to guess, do you think the plan was always, I mean, once we know it's not Hunter, was it always Austin as the next most viable choice? Was there discussion of it being Ahmed Johnson or Vader or someone like that? Or was it just automatic since he'd been working with Bret and Shawn? Oh, it's got to be Steve.
Yeah, pretty much. I'd say 90% it's got to be Steve. There was some discussion about Ahmed, but I think the general consensus was that he wasn't quite ready emotionally, socially. How was he going to fit in? And it wasn't, and Austin's, the decision to go with Steve was immensely more popular than going with Ahmed, but from the talent, what they told me.
No doubt about it.
So there wasn't any really strong challenges. After Triple H got on the shit list, Austin was the logical choice. He may have been the logical choice all along, quite frankly.
So Austin gets put into the King of the Ring tournament. He beats Bob Holly in the first round. He beats Savio Vega in the second round, and he debuts the Stone Cold Stunner at a television tapings for Superstars. It happens on June 8th. And the future Joey Abs of the Mean Street Posse is going to be the first recipient of the Stone Cold Stunner. And as the legend goes, it was Michael Hayes who suggested the move. So now we've seen a total 180-degree switch of this character in just inside of 6 months. We go from the ringmaster to Stone Cold. We go from, having a second with Ted DiBiase to now it is this DTA. He's his own man, loner character. We go from the $1 Million Dream to the Stone Cold Stunner. What a transition. And there was a lot of things that were out of his control that just sort of happened. He could have never campaigned. I guess he could have, but DiBiase took a better deal and left.
Right.
The whole curtain call thing happened. This is a story of just walking through open doors, answering when opportunity knocked, right?
Yep. Yeah. It's game day. When it's game day, you go play. And that was him all along. He was a game day guy. When he was on the road, house shows, he wanted to be on all the house shows. He wanted to go on last. And if I booked him earlier, to get him out of the building earlier, he got angry. I got another cussing. I got cussed a lot, Conrad. So, but Steve was, he just kept fighting. That was what other people had to understand about him. He's relentless. He's not going to give up. We're either going to give him his notice to get rid of him or roll with it and see where it takes us. I'm all in favor of rolling with it. The audience is telling us he's selling merchandise. He's getting pops. He's supposed to be a heel. Big pops, significant pops. So then to me, it becomes a matter of it's a no-brainer at that point.
So King of the Ring 96, we've covered before. Everybody knows the story. He has the match with Mark Mero, gets accidentally kicked in the mouth. He's cut. He's still got the scar to this day, but that's not going to deter him from beating Jake the Snake in the main event, standing next to Michael Hayes and cutting that super famous promo where Austin 316 becomes the thing. Austin would say, I do have to say that even after I did my 316 promo at King of the Ring and introduced my new catchphrases, Vince still didn't listen to all of my ideas. I don't think he had ever pushed anybody like me before. I'm not saying I was the best. I was just a different breed of cat. I was trying to be a heel, but I was accepted universally as a babyface. This was new ground for me too. I was just kind of working my way through it, but it was all new to me. So even Austin is admitting that not much is changing from his character. So even though he is wrestling like a heel and cutting promos like a heel, he's being cheered almost like an anti-hero. And I guess you could argue that maybe Jake the Snake was the first version of that, but there was never a better version of it than Steve Austin. how hard or was it a challenge for Vince to warm up to that idea? Because it does feel like for so long, wrestling was very paint by numbers. You're a good guy, you're a bad guy. And now we're starting to see more shades of gray.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the right place, the right time. And we had obviously the right guy for the job. He was a different babyface than we'd ever booked on that level. Even though, as you mentioned, Jake the Snake was a character babyface at one point in time, and a real good one. But it's not fair to compare Jake's character babyface run with Austin's.
Oh, no, of course not.
You're not. I know that you're not, but it's a different ball game. So, but that's, Steve was just, again, fate, man. He had been through so much, triceps and knees and politics, home life issues. All those things kept, flying. Boom. Here's another one. Here's another thing you got to take care of. Here's another thing you got to do. But he never lost the vision of where he wanted to go. He had that vision. He had the directions. He had set the GPS. We were going exactly where we were supposed to go. That's what his vision was always to be. If we can do this, I think we can really get over and make this thing special. And then we knew, you get great market research in a variety of forms in pro wrestling.
Oh yeah.
I know a lot of people are married to the quarter hours and quarter hour rankings, ratings, all those things. And people say, well, I don't understand what the big deal is with this 18 to 49 demo. Well, it's what the network sells ads on. Their ad rates based on ratings in 18 to 49. It's pretty simple. You just do the math. So ad agencies sometimes will look at numbers more than they will look at programming. And the numbers were speaking for themselves by and large. So that faithful 83 weeks. So famous, he even has a podcast named after it.
It worked out.
Yeah.
So the next night on Raw, Austin is going to be working with The Undertaker. He's going to lose by DQ because Goldust interferes. And then Austin's going to take a break for just a bit. He's got to have some plastic surgery done. That kick from Mark Merrow really did some damage. But then he's back at it, man. And he's trying to get this character over. And he had this to say in his book. I remember running down Aldo Montoya on one of our TV shows. He had that yellow mask on his face and I called it a jockstrap. I just cut him and cut him and cut him. And then later on, when I watched the show, I noticed that some of these good things I'd said didn't make air. I was like, man, what the hell? We were in a real snowy town in the Northeast at a building in Lowell, Massachusetts. And I called Vince aside and I said, Vince, can I talk to you? And he said, yeah. And I said, man, what's going on? It seems like every time I say something, y'all take it back to the shop and chop all my stuff out. And Vince said, well, Steve, your stuff is making the people laugh back in the studio. We're concerned because as a heel, we want the fans to not like you. And I said, well, Vince, let me tell you something. I'm 6'2", 250 pounds. I got a bald head and a goatee. I got black trunks and black boots and a big mouth. And man, if you take my personality away from me, I can't compete with anybody here. You got guys here 6'10", 7 feet, 300 pounds, whatever. If you give me my personality, I can compete with anybody. I guarantee it. Vince listened to me and said, okay. Then he walked off and we left it at that. But Vince had gotten the message. He started letting me just go. He stopped editing a lot of my lines out of the show. Vince was beginning to feel and understand the Stone Cold character, which was essential in the development of my in-ring persona. Now, this story in and of itself is easy to just hear and move on and say, well, okay. But if there are people who are in the wrestling business, I don't think the importance of this conversation can be emphasized enough. Do you, Jim?
Well, I don't think talents do what Steve did frequently. They could have the balls to approach Vince and say, can we talk for a second?
Yeah.
When the truth be known, he loves those discussions. He loves that aspect of his life as the owner of the company. And he likes to, he's always thinking. But I think he was just really thinking of ways to make the company better. Finish my thought. But I think a lot of talents don't do it because they're intimidated or they don't know how to communicate.
Right.
We've said this so much in the show, and I hope some folks will accept what I'm trying to say. as being something important in your real life, not your wrestling fan life. You just got to be able to communicate, man. Communication is it's the essence of living to a large degree. You got to be able to communicate with others and learn how to listen and learn how to learn how to present yourself. But a lot of guys didn't have the confidence that Steve had in himself, or what he perceived to be the autonomy to approach Vince in a very serious manner to talk about these issues. Those were huge issues. You got a guy cutting promos that's getting pops all over the place because they're over, they're funny, they're entertaining, they're timely, but we're damned if we want to be a heel. If it had not been proven already by the audience and by the merchandise that was selling, the tickets that were selling, the pops in the arena, all this great market research that you have access to, Steve he wasn't going to be a heel. People live for, what's that word?
Vicariously.
Live vicariously. Yeah, thank you. That's why you're the brains of this outfit. Vicariously. But he was he was perfect for that role. The take this job and shove it mentality. And little did we know at that time that Mr. McMahon would become the top heel in the territory and Steve would become the top babyface.
Well, this is a real paradigm shift. We're not too far removed from, we've got a garbage man gimmick and we've got a plumber gimmick, and now we've got a good bad guy. Or a bad good guy, whatever. The idea is Austin 316 is about to take over the world, and this is the WWF edge that they're looking for, because the NWO on the other channel is just blowing up. Their business is hotter than ever through late summer. When Hulk Hogan turns in July, they're on fire, and that's around the same time. Remember now, Hogan turns heel in July. Austin 316 was born in June. So we're running parallel here. And it's got to be an exciting time in the business in that era. And even the similarities with the merch, right? The NWO shirt's the biggest selling shirt in WCW history. Austin 316 is going to go on to be one of the biggest in WWF history. Plain black shirts, plain white lettering. It's no longer the bright neon colors of the 80s. It's a different era.
Like NXT is now.
Yeah.
Neon colors. I guess those colors have been tested with teenagers, and this is the colors they like. I don't know. I'm being catty. I'm sorry. No, it was a hell of a time. You think about it, Conrad, to be a wrestling fan. It is the same as it is today, because there's so much to pick from. There's so much to sample and to enjoy if you choose to on virtually any night of the week, because you can stream things. So it's, Austin, he was creating a mold for a character babyface that no one has yet to follow. When someone understands how to do that with their personality and their presentation, they're going to go to the bank very often, because there's where your money lies.
I want to mention Austin and Mero work again at the International Incident show, which is another In Your House. It's a return match from King of the Ring, and Austin gets the win, but it almost feels like this crowd isn't really sure how to react. Austin's a heel, but they want to cheer him, but he's not really giving them a reason to cheer. It's almost like he's in a tweener phase, and that would continue through SummerSlam. No, he's not actually on SummerSlam. He's on the free-for-all, but it's against Yokozuna. And Meltzer's reporting in the Observer that Bret Hart, if he comes back to the WWF, he's handpicked Austin as his first opponent. So maybe they're just trying to keep Steve in the mix, but what that entails is Yokozuna goes up to the top rope, but because he's too heavy, the top rope breaks. Austin steals the win in just under 2 minutes. Not exactly maybe the type of win Austin would be looking for, but a pretty memorable moment here nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, Vince is taking real good care of Yoko creatively.
Yeah.
And to see Austin get that win was a surprise, especially because of the length of the match, because of the ring malfunction. But no, we didn't want all the heat or the fire, the little fire emoji, to be lost. So you had to keep Steve somewhat. He should have been on the card in a different role, in hindsight, but he wasn't. So we made the best out of what we had. But that scenario with Yoko was very timely in the build of Stone Cold Steve Austin. People forget about it. It was, a lot of people didn't see it. Some people have never seen it because it wasn't on the pay-per-view. Now you can go back and stream the hell out of it.
Yeah. So the crowd's starting to cheer Steve a little more here. Brian Pillman, by the way, is now at least going to be on camera a little more, and they're at least teasing some things when they pass each other in the aisles and whatnot. And then Austin was scheduled to work Savio Vega at In Your House Buried Alive. We covered that recently in the archives, but it didn't happen because Vega wound up getting hurt, and instead he's replaced by Hunter Hearst Helmsley. But that's worth discussing a little bit. Savio was more of a babyface. Austin was more of a heel. But when Savio goes down, they don't get another babyface to replace him. They get another heel. They get Hunter Hearst Helmsley. So now we've got a heel match, but the crowd is solidly behind Austin. And it's interesting to think, these guys are going to go on to become, Stone Cold Steve Austin and the Cerebral Assassin and blah, blah, blah. But we see them early here in an all heel match. But boy, the fans don't want any part of that. They want to cheer Steve Austin. It's pretty fun to watch the evolution of this character.
Yeah. And nothing we could do, nothing those boys could do in that match was going to make it come out any different. And quite frankly, at the end of the day, Austin was finally getting what he wanted, that rebel, anti-establishment babyface who doesn't have to change how he works, but can lap up the perks of being a top babyface star in merch sales, etc. Because we're not talking about just a couple of bucks here on this merch sale thing. We're talking about a lot of money being changed hands. So, but yeah, Steve was, and Triple H wanted to be a heel. So there you go. Worked out fine.
Yeah,
I thought those guys had good chemistry too. Steve and Hunter always had, I thought, good. I can't remember them having a stinker. And that's hard to say because they wrestle each other so much.
Survivor Series 96 is next. Of course, on the way, we're going to have Austin build up a whole bunch of fun stuff here with Brian Pillman. We recently covered the whole Brian Pillman thing in the archive, so go check that out. But it all starts really when Bret Hart announces he's coming back. Pillman is celebrating when he sees it on the backstage monitor. Austin sort of gives him the evil eye. They have the interview at Superstars where Brian Pillman is trying to play Roddy Piper, I suppose, but he has too many compliments for Bret Hart. That annoys his old friend Steve Austin, who then stomps out the ankle. And then what do you know? We start beating up cameramen and running our mouth on live wire. And then we do a breaking and entering with a gun. And this is all happening with Brian Pillman, who can't wrestle, in order to build up the match with Bret Hart. Bret Hart's been pretty vocal over the years that he didn't really like the edgy adult stuff. Do you know where he was on the whole gun angle? You and I never asked that.
I can't imagine him being overwhelmed with it.
Yeah.
Because it was so non-traditional. I wasn't a big fan of it either. I found it to be unrealistic. But it was, a lot of people thought it was good TV. And another thing about Brian, you mentioned Brian couldn't wrestle because of his physical status. He came up with all those ideas. Because he wanted to stay in the game. He was finding a way. We talked about Jake Roberts a while ago. We don't have anything for you if you want to be an agent. Well, if you don't have anything else, of course. Those are just things that happen in the business. And but Steve was just he had a hell-bent personality that was not going to be denied, and anybody that tried to stand in his way was going to get run over.
It's an unbelievable match that we're building towards Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret Hart. I know we've talked about it before, but I want to play the promo because it's an interesting change of pace. You shoot Stone Cold Steve Austin in what looks like, what's all black and white. And, it looks like a pretty rough area, and he's just running that mouth in classic Stone Cold fashion. Let's take a listen because this is one heck of a promo package that you put together for this show. Here we go.
In 3, 2.
What the hell is that all about,
This ain't
Brett?
no ballet class.
Sunglasses and sparklers.
What a load of crap.
So, Bret, you're coming back to continue a legacy? Stone Cold's gonna make your comeback a living hell. You can start begging for some mercy right now. Beg for mercy. You're not gonna find it. I think you're completely pathetic. You're the best there is, was, and ever will be, whatever. Son, you're looking at the best there is. Austin 316, oh, Bret, the whole world knows that you quit because you lost to Shawn Michaels. The pretty boy, the boy toy, kicked your ass back to Canada. You couldn't face yourself, and you damn sure couldn't face your family. Ran away in shame. You should have picked another time to come back, son. No sexy when the boy. Bell rings and it's time to get down to business, I'm going to take 7 years of frustration and being pissed off out on your ass. Think about it like this, Bret. You can finally go home, look yourself in the mirror, and get a little peace of mind because you will know you were indeed beaten by a real man.
I mean, I'm ready to go watch that match again right now.
Yeah, those two guys have a future. You know, Steve, there's a beautiful part about that too. I was listening to somebody on Busted Open recently talk about being in NXT and then being on in other companies that have TV, like Impact or somewhere. Whereas Impact gave him some bullet points, and he went out there and did his own promo, and he felt good about it. And in NXT, the thing that they were worried about is missing a line. Because then the writers would take exception that you're doing it on purpose. You're screwing up my copy. My work of art is being compromised. Give me a fucking break. You guys got to be shitting me. How anybody could really think that you're doing a talent a favor by writing out their promo, telling them how they should think. Well, instead of it being a pro, or somebody that has a lot of experience, those thoughts are coming out of some kid's mind. They're a writer's, it's a writer's creation. And I don't know how many, I don't know. It seems to me ill-fated, but I might be wrong about that. But I know one thing. I always hated to come to TV and have a script. I got to do a promo. And here's what they want you to say. Because I'm an ad-lib guy, as you know, and for better or for worse. But golly, man, let me see what we got in these guys. And that's what Vince finally did with Steve. He saw the audience is buying everything Austin said. So Vince started making sure creative, like that video and that interview you just played. It was all refined. It was all strategic. And it enhanced Steve's image that he wanted. And Vince was sold. That was that promo and how it was approved and how it was done was a great illustration, maybe the best illustration we've talked about today of Vince's increased trust in Stone Cold.
Yes.
And him realizing, look, we're not going to screw this deal up. And luckily we didn't.
The way it was shot, the language they let him get away with, the whole thing, it made it feel like a main event, and it's just the co-main event, but he and Bret stole the show. And then of course, Shawn and Sid, had Sid's best match ever and a world title switch, and really a pretty monumental show here, Survivor Series 96. I do want to mention something, because on the heels of that match, you're at the desk and you're saying, Bret Hart brought his A game. There was no ring rust. He needed every bit of it to beat Stone Cold. That sort of line of thinking. And then when you get finished, Vince says, I totally disagree. Now that's a different, thing that we didn't normally see from Vince. Normally, and years later, of course, he would be in the backstage area and yelling in your headset, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're selling your ass off here, and now the owner of the company at your left elbow just says, I totally disagree. Boy, he's not leaving you a lot of wiggle room there, is he?
No, I didn't mind it at all, because I was more popular than Vince.
For sure.
So, and I gave Steve an out.
Yes.
Bret Hart didn't come back as a wounded animal and limp out of there with a win.
Right.
He had his A game. He was as good as he ever was. And on a given night, the outcome could be very different. You've always got to give the guy doing the job, doing the honors.
Give him an out.
You got to.
Yeah.
You got to make them a little bit whole. I tell announcers that all the time. You'd be very surprised the announcers in pro wrestling that contact me for a tip or advice. It might not make all their employers happy, but they're looking for guidance. That's all. Feedback, positive feedback. And, but you know, Steve was, certainly had created this image that he had fought so hard for. And it looked like many times he was not going to be successful, but he refused to lose. Just refused.
The next night on Raw, it's an underrated classic of that time. It's Steve Austin versus Mankind. Now remember, both of these guys a year prior were in WCW. Not the case here. Vader was scheduled originally for this match, but he got hurt the night before. And this is one of the early examples of the WWE main event style that would be to come. There's brawling. There's a lot of time outside of the ring. Austin ultimately gets the win by DQ after the Executioner, aka Terry Gordy under a hood, interferes. But go out of your way to check this out. I mean, we know later Austin and Mankind are going to have some classics, but that's 2 years later. Here, where they're both getting their feet underneath them as WWF characters, this is a really, really good match. And then we would see Austin interfere in the middle of an Owen Bret match on Raw, which starts to plant the seeds of Bulldog and Owen breaking up, as well as Owen and Austin aligning against Bret. Do you think there was ever talk of a Bulldog Bret tag team against an Owen Austin tag team?
Oh, sure. There was discussion about it because it would have been I think it'd be a great booking.
Yeah.
Great chemistry. The match quality would have been superb without question.
In your house, it's time is our next pay-per-view. It's the last one of December 96. We just recently covered on Something to Wrestle, and you see Austin on the show, but in order to see him, he's not in a match. He's interfering in Davey and Owen's tag title defense against Fake Razor and Fake Diesel. But Davey Boy and Austin get into it again. I'm only mentioning this because even though he's not on the card, they're keeping him in front of the audience. They want to make sure that he's at the forefront of your mind. We got to keep him in front of you. He's got to be prominent. And the next night on Raw, Vader and Austin open the show. So as a note here, for the past few months, whenever there's a pay-per-view, the next night on Raw, who's in the very first segment? Stone Cold Steve Austin.
It tells you something, man.
Yes, it does.
The quarter-hour ratings have indicated that we like him.
Yes.
And we'd like to see more of this guy. We're not sure what he's doing. We're not sure where he's going. But goddamn, we're enjoying the hell out of it. And so a lot, as I said earlier, when I was trying to find that word vicariously, there's a lot of men 18 to 49 that shaved their head and grew goatees because they wanted to live vicariously through that beer drinking, hell bending or whatever.
Beer drinking, hell raising, all that deal.
He wasn't limousine riding,
no
jet flying. But it was the same thing. It's just different vehicles. He was driving a pickup truck, and people could identify with him. They could identify with being pissed off at your boss. I'm not making enough money. I'm working too many hours, et cetera, et cetera. I worried about taking care of my family, all those things. People could understand that. And Austin always had a very subtle sense of desperation that is hard to encapsulate and describe. But this match has had this keen sense of urgency, and it made him feel vulnerable without begging and scraping, backing up, and all those things that a heel would do. He didn't have too many reverse gears. And then when he tried to do it as a heel, it didn't work. But he was just, we had found what we were looking for. And now it's just a matter of getting to that promised land and getting Steve to the top of the card, and making him champion at some point sooner than later.
Bret is going to attack Austin and put him in the sharpshooter as the story continues. Of course, Austin is now announced as going to compete in the Royal Rumble in San Antonio. As a reminder, he started 1996 as the ringmaster and the $1 Million Champion with Ted DiBiase in his corner, and slipping on some baby oil to get eliminated in the Royal Rumble in 96. But in 97, he wins the whole damn thing and steals the show. When do you think you knew Steve Austin's winning the Royal Rumble?
Oh gosh, early. Because you look at things, who should we push and put over give the almighty push to. And you'd be surprised, Conrad, how many books I signed here. My man Stephen Link at our website, Jrs BBQ.com, by the way. Subtle plug, not too subtle. And by the way, thanks to everybody that bought Christmas items and stocking stuffers and are making our stuff part of your normal fare. I appreciate it very, very much. We had a great holiday season and still selling, baby. Sell. I'm not sure where we were, but nonetheless, where were we, Conrad?
Well, we were talking about all the great stuff over at jrsbbq.com. But before we get there, I want to mention this question from Big Meat, which actually works with JR Seasoning. Was King of the Ring or the matches with Bret Hart Austin's breakthrough moment, in your opinion, Jim?
Bret Hart.
I agree.
And the King of the Ring had a much more, had more cachet, it seems to me, like, in that era than it does now. It needs a fresh coat of paint, in my opinion. It's still got clout. You got equity in it. You built equity in it. And it still has some cachet, as I said. But that was Bret Hart's. I don't know if Steve would have got to where Steve got to, like he did, if it weren't for Bret Hart. Bret Hart's as big a reason that Steve Austin became Stone Cold as anybody. Because after his performances, their matches together, everybody saw there was no flaw in Austin. He's the real deal. Because he's pushing Bret Hart to the exact limit of where a man should have to go to win a match. They had great chemistry, respect. They didn't do spots that make you roll your eyes. They weren't slapping their face or slapping their hip, all that silly shit. They just went out and wrestled. And I think that's what, at the end of the day, most fans are really most interested in.
Well, we hope that you guys are interested in jrsbbq.com. Just before we recorded, I went over into the kitchen and I went ahead and seasoned supper tonight. A little liberal coating of JR's BBQ, the all-purpose seasoning. It works great on everything. We had it last night on pork chops. We're having it tonight on chicken. It works with everything. We've even heard people putting it on popcorn, eggs. Yep. You can't go wrong with all-purpose seasoning from jrsbbq.com, right? Yeah,
you're right. And I was telling you before we started recording today, I was at Publix the other day and I went by did I tell you the story already on air?
No.
I discovered Skyline chili. They have two kinds in the frozen food department. And I get the one with the spaghetti. So it's chili and spaghetti, and I got some cheese. I do it it's microwavable, 9 minutes. But I love Skyline chili. You know, I loved it when I was being able to eat there the first few times. I know when Raphael and I were driving to Cincinnati earlier this year, we made a point to stop at a Skyline chili on the way in. So that's what I had today. I had a little Skyline chili, 9 minutes in the microwave, and I'm just happy as hell. And I may have that for Christmas dinner. If I get in the mood for it, I may have that Christmas dinner. Hell, I don't know. And I'm not feeling sorry about it. Poor me. Let's send JR some food. No, you ain't got to do that. I'm going to be fine. Because I got a lot of Crown Royal.
There you go.
Hey, Conrad, I found some Crown Royal the other day. I still been looking for that high dollar brand that you treated me with.
Yeah.
I can't find it anywhere.
I can't find it locally either.
Yeah, I can't find it nationally. I've put out a search. But I went to the liquor store the other day, the biggest one here that I've been in, here in Jacksonville, and they didn't have it. But they had this other kind that was 18-year-old Crown Royal. You ever have that?
Just got a bottle. Haven't cracked it yet, though. But I saw it about a few weeks ago. What do you think?
Oh, you're going to like it, man.
Good.
Smooth as a baby's ass.
Good.
Sipping whiskey. And needs about 2 ice cubes. Just keep it kind of cool. And I absolutely love it. It's $150 a bottle.
Yeah, they're proud of it.
Oh, buddy. And that's when you really start sipping. You sip real good little sips, little dainty little sips when you're paying $1.50 for what I guess is a fifth?
A fifth, yeah.
Yeah. So I went crazy on the first couple of days I bought it because it's so smooth. It's like drinking Snapple. And well, not quite, but nonetheless, it was good. So I'm trying to. that's going to become my holiday beverage, a little sipping. 18, is it 15 or 18-year-old, whatever it was, 18, I think. You're going to like it, Conrad, and don't mix it with nothing.
Will do.
Please don't do it.
Okay.
If nothing else, just for the holidays, and for our friendship,
2 ice cubes,
and sip it and see how you like it before you start creating ways to water it down with Coke Zero or ginger ale or whatever. I water it down with 2 ice cubes, and I enjoy the shit out of it. Hey, I got another request from our audience. I've been thinking about some more T-shirts, right? Because everybody's making some money on T-shirts, and I got T-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com and AEW.com, AEWShop.com. Not many, few, but I'd like to have something that says maybe as simple as JR just beat cancer's ass.
Yeah, I like
or
that.
JR beat cancer's ass. I'm thinking that might be a bad theme. Now, I don't know how to dress it all up, or if there's something else could be said better.
Maybe it's JR 420 says I just smoked barbecue's ass, smoked cancer's ass.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll come up with something.
It's an idea.
Yeah.
So
hey, I got an idea. I don't know that you'll like it, but next week we're going to close out 2021 with a look back at Starrcade 91. It's Battle Bowl, the lethal lottery, maybe one of the worst ideas in pay-per-view history. We put a bunch of random dudes and tag teams together, and whoever wins gets into a battle royal. We'll also be talking about Lex Luger's contractual status and happiness with WCW, the continued legal battle with the WCW title and Ric Flair, the WWF running 2 pay-per-views in 1 week, Portland Wrestling officially closing, and how Donald Trump made WCW move Super Brawl 92 before it ever happened. There's a lot of moving parts. This is a crazy time in WCW 1991, is it not?
Yes, it is. And it's involving some major personalities. You mentioned a lot of those guys. Arguably the greatest champion ever in the H, the former president of the United States, and all these other names that play a big part in our business's history. So, it's going to be one full of backstory. Like you said, I wouldn't watch what we're doing if it's just to talk about a great show. There are moments that are really interesting, but the backstage goings on are what's really intriguing, and we'll share those next week.
I'm looking forward to it. We hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas. Thanks for spending some time with us today on Christmas Eve's Eve. We'll be back next week, but before you listen to us, we want you to watch Dynamite next Wednesday, because JR is going to stomp a mud hole in Cancer's ass, walk it dry, and be the voice of wrestling next Wednesday night on TNT. Jim, we're glad you're coming back, man. We've missed you.
Thank you, Conrad. I'm excited about that. And, unless something rears its ugly head at the 11th hour, that's the schedule we're going to be on. That's the schedule we're going to keep. And I'm excited about getting back on the air with my buddies. Tony's getting a little controversy here lately.
Is he?
Yeah. I heard on Busted Open where he called on the air. He called, Dave LaGreca SOB.
Oh, good. Well, LaGreca deserves that. He's a nothing happening son of a gun.
So, something else he had to do with, Rebel. What was that story?
I know nothing.
All right, good. So now we know there's something. Because that's how we wrestling fans think. We'd rather the glass is always half empty. Well, anyway, I worked for Tony for 30 years, and I love working with him. And we're going to create some more magic, hoping that TBS show. I say that, and I've not been told I'm going to be on it, but I kind of got a feeling I will be. And but it's going to be fun. But it's going to be fun to get back to work, hear the fans, see the fans. They say our advance for Daly's Place next week is excellent. So it should be it's kind of like a homecoming.
Yeah.
I think Tony Khan has his big New Year's Eve party somewhere in that tied to that booking. So that's always nice. Free food. If it's free, Conrad, it's for me.
Do you think they'll have Urban Meyer strung up there for the locals to come take a shot
in
at?
effigy?
Maybe? Yeah, maybe.
I think they kind of want to distance themselves from the Urban Meyer situation.
Of course. I'm just kidding.
That's the big story in Jacksonville. Who's going to be the next football coach?
Who do you think? I'm campaigning for Jim Ross.
Oh, yeah, right. I am campaigning for someone with NFL experience that knows how to coach an outstanding, potentially outstanding young quarterback, a Byron Leftwich. I like Eric Bieniemy. I don't dislike, God dang it. What's the guy's name that was at Philadelphia? Doug, they won the Super Bowl. And I can't remember his last name. I guess I'm not too high on him. But there's a lot of experienced guys, but you got to be NFL friendly, experienced, and understanding the locker room, which Urban never did.
Doug Peterson's who you were trying to think of.
Doug Peterson, yeah.
Yeah.
He's also been in a conversation on the news. This is not from the cons. Shaw didn't call me and say, "Hey, JR, what do you think about this coaching thing?" Now, if he did, I'd give him some feedback, but
sure,
that's not really my role right now.
Sure.
So it's going to be fun to see that. They got the number one pick in the draft again. They got $70 million under the cap, money available. So if you get somebody that's a smart dude, man, that knows how to put the pieces together, how many draft picks in the top 10 or 15 or 20 can you parlay with the number one pick?
Right.
If there's not a clear-cut number one pick, what can you gain by trading it? And I don't think that's a bad idea. If there was a different year and it was the year of the quarterback or whatever, but it isn't. I just think that would be something to consider and maybe consider down the road. It would seem to me to be very, very advantageous, Conrad, to get everybody hired that needs to be hired in place before the draft and make this draft a mother bear. And like I said, it may involve trades, it may involve whatever, but there's a lot of players that are closely clumped together. And normally Mel Kiper Jr. and Mel Kiper III and Mel Kiper IV, all those Kipers, they get their shit together here. So there's a lot of guys that are 1As, 1Bs, 1Cs. So what do you gain by just holding on to that pick? There's one offensive lineman or a wide receiver that was the thing, like some of those Alabama kids the last 2 or 3 years, then I might change my tune and keep the pick. But unless it's a special player that fills that one need that is essential to be filled, I'm thinking maybe you trade that one number one pick and bankroll a bunch of those draft picks and use that $70 million to rebuild your team. But to do that, you're going to have an expert, and that expert's got to be somebody that's been in the rooms, as they say, the team rooms, the quarterback rooms, and they got to take care of Trevor Lawrence. So as the hair turns in Jacksonville,
it's going to be fun, man. Tune in next Wednesday. We're hopeful that JR will be there telling you that he's beat cancer's ass and
that's right.
Calling wrestling, which is where we love him. And we hope that you love the show we did today. And I guarantee you're going to love next week because JR and I are going to have a lot of fun making fun of a really bad show. Starrcade 91 coming up next week right here.
And bowl predictions, Conrad.
Oh yeah. And bowl predictions.
Oh shit.
Gotta have that.
Big things. So, Conrad, thank you very much for this year.
Thank you, dude. This is a fun year.
Have a hell of a Christmas with all your loved ones there. I'm envious. I'd be a part of it if I could, but with my goddamn foot swollen up and hard to walk and taking 2 flights, it's a little bit more than no fat boy can handle. So, but I'll be there in spirit.
Looking forward to it, man.
All right, buddy.
We'll see you guys next week.
Everybody.
Thanks
Here
on Grill and JR.